Hi guys, welcome to today's video. Today is the rebirth after a week off of retro review. Now in this one, I'm going to class season of retro review, we're going to be comparing the cameras together as they go through in their different generational paths. So the first review is obviously going to be the 1D Mark 1 from 2001 versus the 1D Mark II from 2004, and then it'll be the Mark II versus the Mark IIN, and so on and so forth until we get to the 1DX the 1DX, because that's where the retro review ends. My next plan after this part of the series is done is to either do full form reviews on each of the cameras, to do a final review on each one, tick them off, they're done, dusted, there'll be no more kind of real major content on them unless you guys request stuff, like someone's requested me do a video on the 1D Mark IV with the 300mm and converters. Hoping to get that one out this week as well, so we'll see that there, but that's a request, that's not something specifically to do with each one of the cameras. And then what I'm planning and hoping I can move on to is to then purchase a 5D Mark II, Mark III, and then review those, and then go on, do the similar sort of thing, compare them, final review, move to the next ones. I'll be looking at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50Ds. So that's the overall plan of what the retro review will be turning into. If you like the sound of that, by all means subscribe. But what we're going to do first is get onto both of those cameras, look through the specs, compare the two cameras physically together, and then we'll look at some imagery and go from there. So we'll head into those comparisons right now. So here we have the two cameras here. Got the 1D Mark 1 here, the 1D Mark II here. As you can see from the physical bodies of the cameras, they're not massively different. The way I always tell when I've got them on the shelf very quickly is the Mark 1 has the sort of hole here for a light to flash at you. So I've not actually found out what that light's for. I should really read the manual at some point, but it was removed from every other 1D, so it can't be hugely important. The physical shape and design of the cameras themselves is very similar. They both use exactly the same battery. I'll get one out from the Mark II to show you. It uses very long old school battery. The mkii is in both of these cameras here. You can't buy them anymore, but luckily one of my cameras came with about 20 of them, so I've got a good supply for the foreseeable future. Buttons and locations, everything on the front is exactly the same between the two cameras. You've got your shutter button down here and on here with the matching dials on both sides. Moving to the side, you've got your FEL button here, switch on and off for the grip, which I've never really understood why you needed those. Obviously they've removed that option on the mirrorless cameras now, so there probably wasn't really too much of a need for them both. Let's just central these out for you guys so you can see them a bit better. The back of the cameras, again, the only real difference between the two is the newer camera has blue on there to determine what's for your preview side of things compared to what's for your active use and main use. You do gain your bin button moves down to here, so you gain an extra button down the bottom, and you maintain the same number of buttons along the side, same screen size, same big dials, same on-off switches on here. The only difference as well you get from these is if we open up the card holder slots on both, you go from on the Mark 1 1CF to using a redundancy of an SD on the Mark II. Moving to the other side, you do gain a few little bit options here. You get one more down on here, so open up this here, you get not only your digital but you get video out as well, and you've just got digital on the 1D. Obviously we've already shown how to battery release on here. When I first got these, I didn't realise you actually, unlike the new cameras, you twist and then you press this button to release so it doesn't accidentally fall out. On the newer ones I use, you don't have that option on there. And then if we move to the top of both cameras on here, so there we go, I'll center you out for you here. the actual positioning, everything is the same. Let's de-dust this off here. I haven't used the Mark 1 in ages. But you've got the same buttons across along here, same buttons along here. It's just you've got blue outlines for a couple on here. And when you're wanting to use these, you have to actually physically keep them held down while you use the dial on the back to change your settings, rather than the modern cameras where you press it, change your setting, and then press a shutter to release, or whatever you want to do like that. With these, you do have to hold them down until you're sorted, and there are different, as you can see here, different combinations. So you press both of these down together and you'll get the mode come up. If you press these two here, you'll get the drive options come through. But apart from that, exactly the same. You've got the same hot shoe, black finished hot shoes on here, and just for the naked eye, they don't look incredibly different. Spec wise though, obviously this camera came out in 2001, this one in 2004. You got a 4 megapixel full frame sensor hidden under those caps compared to an 8 megapixel full frame sensor. And the back there, we've obviously gone through the fact that they use one card compared to you can shoot redundancy, but the big difference as well was you had a maximum size of card of a 2 gigabyte on the compact flash on here, where you could use up to an 8 gigabyte compact flash on the Mark II. But on the redundancy card, the SD card, you could still only have a maximum of 2 gigabytes. So there was a bit on there, a bit of change through that. They both have 45 autofocus points, and apart from that, they were very, very similar cameras. It's just you did gain that double up on the megapixel of the Mark II, which made it physically a very nice camera to use, and a lot more detail in the photos, which will show you in the next stage. We'll compare the two photos taken from each of these cameras. We've got 3 photos from each to compare to, and what we'll do is we'll move to them right now and have a look at them. So we've got the first set of photos here, and on the left there's always going to be the Mark 1, on the right is always going to be the Mark II. So straight away what you can see is the details on both photos is actually surprisingly very good, even from the only very small 4 megapixels from the 1D Mark 1. But to me, on the right, you've got a little bit more colour coming out of the photo physically, so the way the photo is being processed is ever so slightly nicer on the Mark II compared to the Mark 1. But the Mark 1 image is still a very nice, very, very detailed image. You can see all the flies there on top of the flower very, very easily, and all the little details in the water. And it wouldn't be a photo that I'd be massively upset taking, if I'm honest. Okay, so photo 2, I try to get as close as imagery similarity as possible. So they're insects on a flower, not the same insect, not the same flower, but they're as close as physically possible. And again, like the one before, the details on both are really good. You wouldn't naturally tell the one on the left was taken on a 4 megapixel camera per se, but you know, the colours I think are still ever so slightly nicer on the flower on the one on the right from the Mark II. And I think that just to say generally is from natural development. They've gone from their first digital camera to the second one, they've doubled the megapixels, and you can get that better colour profile from that. They've learnt from the first generation and moved into that second generation. You got to think now on DSLRs we're on our 9th or 10th generation, so that's why the colours just keep improving time on time. They're also using the same lens in both these photos, but you can see the bokeh on the one on the right is slightly better, even though they're the same lens. It's brought out more of the bokeh. I'm not sure if that's because it's got twice the megapixels, so it can bring out that little bit more detail, but you have got those bokeh balls starting to appear on the one on the right and not on the one on the left. But still both very, very impressive images. And finally again here, not the same plant, but shooting through something to get to the plant itself. So I'm focusing on the butterfly, or the moth I think it is actually, on the one on the left, and shooting through to get to the edge of the plant on the one on the right. And again, same as what we've been saying already, details are great on both. I really like the details on the moth on the left, but the colours are just that a little bit nicer on the photo on the right from the Mark II. They're more what I'm used to dealing with naturally from the 1DX Mark II and the R3 and all that sort of thing. They are that just slightly more natural colours. The one on the left, it almost looks, especially the greens. The greens, what's shouting at me, the colour's not the same. Is the green just isn't processed the same as the Mark II. Obviously in post edit you can get around that and change that, and I can edit it to look exactly the same, but we're looking at the raw performance of the cameras here. So this is, in my opinion, say the main difference between the two. You obviously be able to crop a lot more with the 1D Mark II, but the actual image of the 1D Mark I is still really impressive. So that's the cool overall comparisons of both of those cameras there, from the specs over to the imagery itself and the bodies, etc. And as you can tell from them, the physical body side of things, they are incredibly similar. They are very much the same, apart from very minor tweaks and add-ons onto the Mark II. The interior, all apart from the megapixel jump, is all very similar as well. It's only when you actually physically look at the imagery itself, as I've said throughout looking through those images side by side, is the way the camera processes the colours is ever so slightly different between the Mark I and the Mark II. Now, the Mark II, in my opinion, looks more realistic. I believe, obviously, the Mark I, that was the first generation. They'd gone from shooting from film cameras, obviously SLRs, to move into the collaboration with Kodak. There's the 2 megapixel 1D, and then into the full-fledged 1D Mark I. And only having 4 megapixels, it's amazing how much detail you can still get out of those 4 megapixels. Those imagery that I took with them, even though the file size was absolutely tiny compared to what I'm used to processing from my more modern cameras, but the amount of detail in there still was super impressive and shouldn't be kind of shunned upon, considering they're only 4 megapixels. And you say to someone who's got a 4 megapixel camera, oh, you can't get anything with that. Like, you really can. And it would be nice, even like once this series is over, for me to personally take that Mark I out to the zoo maybe one day, and sort of with one of my bigger L lenses, and sort of see what imagery I can truly get on a nice sunny day with a lot more opportunity, rather than just going around my garden, and seeing what the true performance is on that camera, and taking it as like a secondary with my 1DX Mark II or my R3, and just seeing what you can get and what the colours look like compared to those really modern cameras. And that's something, if you guys want to see that, if you want to see a video on me comparing that Mark I to my 1DX or my R3, I'll happily do that. Just let me know in the comments down below, and we can physically see side by side, right, this is where we were and this is where we are now. I'll take them both out with 70-200 f2.8s because I've got access to 2 of those, and we'll physically compare the two. So if you like the sound of that, let me know in the comments down below. But as you can see, in my opinion, that 1D Mark II is the better camera, and it should be. But it's still amazing to see how good the imagery was back in 2001. Literally thinking now is 24 years ago, which, you know, 2001, I was 10. So I didn't have any interest in really any of these cameras yet. And, you know, Canon were releasing that, and my dad was probably going nuts, going, this is the new best thing. But let me know your thoughts down below. Did you see what I see in the imagery, or do you think that I'm wrong with what I see in these images? Do you think the colours look better on the Mark I? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video if you did like this, so I know to carry on making this series for you guys. And again, if you have any ideas for videos you want to see on top of this series, then let me know again in the comments, and I will write them down my notepad I've got for video ideas, and I will get that content out to you as soon as I can. So thank you for watching as always, guys, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya.